do for you tonight because you're an author of Shades of Me.
So I'm going to get to it. Put my glasses on because I can't look at you. I can't see you with them on, but I can't read without. As you get older.
I just leave them on all the time. I don't know how many times I've had a shower and they're still on. It's just kind of, I can't see. Oh, that's because the glasses are still on.
So you're looking really well, my man. I haven't seen you for a few years, but you're looking great. And so I want to know the inspiration and motivation about writing Shades of Me. Was there a specific moment or event that prompted you to start this book, to start the writing process?
The first part of the book is where I've done my first lot of journaling, and it's my very first lot, and it was about 18 years ago, I think, maybe 15 years ago, something like that. But because I got my other publications, my cards, I happened to be having lunch with somebody over here, and we were with my publisher, and Lisa said to me, "We really need you to write the book." And I was still quite surprised and I still am quite surprised at why, because I didn't feel like I had a story that was that different to a lot of women when it comes to the domestic violence. And then I didn't feel like I had a story that was that different to a lot of people who learn about their Aboriginality a little bit later in life as well. So it was sort of like the double side of that. I was confused as to why I thought I had a story. So there was no real inspiration. It just started as a conversation.
But it did start because you were a successful author of your spirituality and your oracle cards and your journals and stuff like that. So we thought that the fascinating aspect was that of your background and where you come from and how you come to your own spirituality, and you were successful as a published author of spiritual books and cards. So then there was a whole bigger story to be had. I think that's the really interesting.
And that's right. And I think that was more than 3 years ago.
And that's in the book. That's very much in the book. That's there. And yes, you have a similar story to other women that have grown up and had the violent background and Aboriginal or non-Aboriginal, that's out there. But I think the fact of how you found your own spirituality and then how you found your own Indigenous history as well. That's the interesting.
I guess, and it's interesting when you hear other people's ideas on, like having Lisa's view on where the book started from, because I lose that view. I just get stuck in me and all about me. Get stuck in me and forget, that there is something that other people see. That I don't.
I understand that.
Is that a thing about us Aboriginal women, us Aboriginal people, that we just don't, all that stuff doesn't make that much difference to us?
It really does. I know from my own experience, like I've spoken at the United Nations and someone said, "Do you know how big that is?" And I spoke. I didn't do anything special. I just, spoke like 5 times, I might add. But, but that's that thing, like you just do it, like you just get up and you do it.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that we, when you've got we collect all these awards and accolades and all of us through our lives, but as Aboriginal women, Aboriginal people, that's not important to us. Who are you? Where are you from? You're a good person. And it's all from there, I believe.
Yeah.
But Mel, the full-rounded aspect of why we thought you should do the book was also because of your work that you do now.
Yeah.
That was the huge aspect of the goodness in your heart, and you were acting from an authentic point of view because you wanted to help other people that have been in a similar situation. So that's what you should talk about, because what you do in your work is very important.
Yeah, and it is.
It is.
That's the work that we take on. Because we fall into it somehow, some way. So we're talking about child protection. So I worked in child protection most of my life. So, and if not right in the middle of it, then like today on the outside.
So that leads me to the next question. What was the most challenging part of that? Because when I read your book, I thought that child protection stuff and not being, and like doing your very best and still not getting the outcome that you needed, or, you know, because in the work that I do too, we've got a program that prevents specifically Aboriginal women from having their children removed at birth. So I know how heart-wrenching that is, but you were right there on the ground with the mums doing that and seeing those babies taken and like, so that's not easy. Not everyone can do what you were doing
I
in
think
child protection.
there's two parts to that. I think there's how do I manage it, and it's I have to compartmentalise it. I have to leave it there
Yeah,
and come home. And that's the way I've managed it all these years. Is I'm quite good at going, you know, that was work and that's that, and this is home. The challenges that when I am at work have been really big challenges. I've always been lucky that I've had somebody that I could bring go,
yeah,
to, which has made me, I think, survive this long in this work. And I think that I would be egotistical to believe I did any of it on my own, because whilst I might have been very much a crucial part of it, there are other really good women and men, but mostly women that stood beside me and behind me,
yeah,
and sometimes in front of me to push around a bit to get things changed, to make things happen. I have seen some really awful things happen.
yeah,
I've seen parents do some awful things to children. And I'm more forgiving of that than I am of when the system does wrong by the children, by our kids.
yeah,
And I think that's the part that I struggle with the most, is that we have a system that takes over being the parent, and they're really useless and stupid and horrible and probably at times more abusive to children than what the parents might have been. And I'm not saying it's okay that children are abused at all, but I weigh up the difference between what abuse a parent might do to a child, yet a child can still stay there. Because abusive parents don't most often love their children. So if children are still being abused but are in a loving home, and I know that sounds odd, but it is what it is, opposed to being out of their home in not only sometimes not even, mostly not even in their own community, but in the system takes over being the parents.
it's totally different. Yeah, but my thing around child removal is that the government will pay strangers to look after children, but won't put that money into helping parents keep their children.
Exactly.
That is the issue that I come up with all the time. Like you're taking that child from neglect because the parents are struggling with money sometimes, and yet you'll pay somebody else to look after those children.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Makes no sense to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not only just that, it's quite often it means children being separated, and it means not going to Aboriginal carers and out of their communities. So there's a whole range of things that come with when we can't be at home.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of other.
There's always a backstory.
Yeah. But we're harming them more.
Yeah.
It's like weighing up harm, you know. And I work with some really good child protection workers and managers that get it. But there's this handful that don't.
Yeah.
And those ones that don't, what worry me more than anything is the flow-on effect, is the generational impact that has, because that child then grows up to be a parent. And what does that, if that parenting, if they've missed out on crucial things in growing up, then we know what the outcomes are going to be, don't we?
That's right. You don't know what you don't know, and if you haven't been parented, then it's hard to be a parent.
Absolutely, I say that all the time. Absolutely, because people say to me in my training, so why, how come our parents, why are Aboriginal parents not doing the best that they can? Where have they learned from?
Yeah.
What have they learned from? They've learned, a lot of people have learned from a system that gives bed and breakfast if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Nothing else, just bed and breakfast, that's all we're doing. And unless you have that, and that's what I think is really important with my story. Even within the early parts of the domestic violence, like the stuff that was happening at home when I was a child, it was still full of love. There was never a time. There was never
The
ever a time.
knives and everything. It was all good.
Knives and guns and all of that. You know, it in between that all, there were so many really good times.
Yeah.
But those times were pretty big as well.
But that's what happens, like in my experience, a lot of children, as soon if they're removed from their parents, as soon as they're old enough to run away, they run back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really
Absolutely. And do you know what I do now?
Margaret.
Family group conference.
Oh, there you go.
So, and that's my whole thing is that I'm very strong on any child that leaves care, and I'm losing this battle. Any child that leaves care has to have family group conference to get their family ready from their community of origin or wherever they feel they belong, because that child's coming home.
Yeah.
Whether the community are ready for them or not, we have to get.
Are you trying to prepare them?
Not the child.
No, the parent, the family.
And community.
And try and get them all in the headspace and come to
Because
them.
the children that have been removed will come back to community
I
with a
get
different
that.
outlook.
Yeah, and so that'll
So
cause a whole different
That's right. So
flow on
the kids
affairs.
that grew up there say, well, who do you think you are? You think you're better than us because you spent time with white people. That's the language. And that goes into the lateral violence and everything else that you speak about in the book too.
Absolutely. It's probably the biggest training I do these days is lateral violence. And it is something that, so lateral violence, bullying, backstabbing, bitching, gossiping, that's the word for it.
Yeah.
And it has such a huge impact on a human being. And I add that, you know, when we arrived, I started talking about happening in my own family. I knew when this book was going to come out that I was going to cop it.
Yeah.
Not only from family, but from other Aboriginal people for whatever reason.
But you've only copped it from one.
So far that I know of. But, you know, there'll be more, and I don't care about them really. When I say I don't care about them, I don't mean it to be disrespectful for them, but they've got their own story, and I can't be responsible for their story.
So you've touched on lateral violence. You've touched on working in the child protection. You've touched on the DV at home and your upbringing. What is the central themes you're going to convey through your story? Was there a
I wouldn't
central
have known that. I wouldn't have known that until probably over the past couple of days.
Yeah.
Because something's come up for me about 2 days ago when I realised that the reason I had done well is because at crucial decision points in my life, I've had good people there to help me. And they've had trust in me and I've had trust in them. So at a number of times, it could have gone either way, it could have gone many ways.
Yeah.
It could have gone many different ways, but I'm here.
See, I think the thing for me when I read it, and I said, who did I speak to? I think it was a love story. I think it was a love story.
No, but
No, but it was a love story of you learning to love yourself
I
for
absolutely,
all that you are and all that you've become.
I absolutely
And you
agree.
had to jump over all those hurdles to get there. And another thing, when you talk about the backlash, I love to say, because I was thinking, that's the title of my next book.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's beautiful.
So that when I read your story, when you realised you were Aboriginal after being grown up, it was because you wanted a house plan and your mother suggested that. I think, oh, geez, people are going to say, look, you're only black because you wanted to get a house line. And I'm pretty sure people would think that. And so I don't know if they'll say to your face.
Absolutely.
But it really would be, it would be something that people would say.
And that's what
But you went out on a limb. You went out on a limb and created. I think her spirituality is a huge aspect of how to merge, how she, and it's part of her self-love.
Yeah.
But in understanding how non-denominational belief in a higher power can help her love herself more and direct her. I think that was a huge aspect for you in your theme too.
But that was part of the healing journey, I think.
It was
from
part
me
of it.
reading it. And this situation come up before you even knew that what you were eating wasn't healthy.
Absolutely. And my response to that is that there was a moment that was the the catalyst of
Mm.
Mum telling me, I didn't get an Aboriginal happy home, by the way, I have to do that. But
No, but
You
I
bought a
didn't-
shop
I didn't
instead.
even
You
bother.
bought a shop
Yeah.
instead.
Well, no, what ended up happening was that I started my journey then.
Yes.
I started my journey, and that's my difference. And I talk about that all the time, Ashlee, that heritage and identity and how different that
Yeah.
they are. So learning I had an Aboriginal grandfather or a great grandfather didn't make me Aboriginal on that day.
No.
It said I just had an Aboriginal great grandfather.
Yeah.
It was that journey that I took from there to there to get to know my community, and a lot of communities still remember my families, and becoming
You
involved.
knew where
in
you
the
fit in that, in the community.
Yeah.
So that's it. With me, I was born and raised in that big Aboriginal family, in a big Aboriginal community looking like this.
Yeah.
So I got stood out like this big Amazon in my family, but I always knew who I didn't know I was any different until I moved to Sydney when I was young, because I was just one of the Donny girls growing.
Yeah.
So it's sad that the people's, regardless of what they look like, their lived experiences can be totally different. Even like dark skinned people that have been grown up out of community have trouble getting back in community. Whereas if you ask anyone in Kempsey, do they know me? They'll say, oh yeah, we know. You know, old Ash or young Ash or whatever Ash I am to do. So it's funny, it's like that, like you just said, that identity thing of identifying and being identifiable. Yes, it's very different.
Absolutely. And I feel like I did because I put my money where my mouth is. Because for all those years and still even today, I still work as an Aboriginal woman in our communities and doing all that stuff. So I think after Mum telling me I was Aboriginal, it was about a year or so later before I applied for my first. I didn't apply for an Aboriginal job. I just went into child protection and then started fighting at that point. And that's where things started to change, where I was able to give back.
Yeah.
To make some changes in legislation and all those changes that needed to happen so that our kids were in a better position than what they were, hopefully.
And that in itself is to be applauded, because not everybody can make change at that level. Like, it's so hard to infiltrate into the policies and the processes that government have around child removal, around anything really in this country.
I was lucky because I was the token black.
There you go.
So everybody wanted the token black. I was on every committee. I was on everything. I was the black answer to everything that was black. So I used it. I used it and I used it and I used it to get what I wanted, which was better outcomes for kids.
You use that word, I reckon. So what do you hope readers will relate to the most in your story? Is it that you never gave up on love? Because you were like, loving. That's what I think. That's like that thing.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that
She's a romantic.
everybody's going
She's a romantic.
Yeah, because me myself after my bad relationship, that was all some stink down. Yeah, I'm not trying that again.
Yeah.
That's true. And I think there's people get something out of family violence, people get something out of the Aboriginality and that journey too. People get something out of that, the child protection stuff, my spirituality stuff. A lot of people will take away from that as well. And then finally the actual traditional love story stuff as well. Yeah. So I think that there'll be parts in there that people will really, really relate to and might skip over a couple of paragraphs. It's good, that's fine. I hope most people read the whole lot. That would be really great. And I'm sure they will. But I think there's enough there to interest an average person.
And someone can identify with, there's three parts in your book that I really identified with. First part was that I was given the book Women That Love Too Much.
Did you?
I've got it in my book too.
No.
Yes. And so when I read that, I said, shut up.
Oh,
I had to read
dear.
it because my auntie gave it to me when I just had my second child. She goes, here, babe, I think you need to read this. And I said, what are you giving me that for? I got very defensive. And then I was mucking and cleaning up and doing something in the book. I thought, oh, maybe it's time to read this book. And I read it from page all the way through. Yeah. The best book I've ever read. Yeah. And when I seen that you done that too, I thought, oh.
There we go.
Yeah.
And that was my first, that was my real moment of making change and moving from that domestic violence relationship because I thought, oh my God, this woman's writing about, like I seriously kept looking at her, you're writing about
That's what makes it.
That's why that book was a bestseller.
I feel attacked.
no, I felt ashamed. I should be looking in my window. No, my goodness me. But that was a big book for me.
Yeah, me too. So that was that.
I read that one.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? The other thing is, how did writing this affect your personal journey and understanding of yourself? Like, what came out of it for you in writing? Like having to relive all those.
Very therapeutic, wasn't it, babe? It was very therapeutic.
I cried every day writing my book.
Yeah.
Every single day I wrote, I cried.
Every time I rewrote it, I went through the trauma of it, and there was a healing process that happened during each rewrite, and then I thought, right, I'm done, and then I have to write again. I think on my computer I got version 12 or 13 sitting there, and in the end, and I'm not supposed to always be dishonest, but I did say towards the end of last year, Lisa said, just a few more changes, I've got to chuck in the bin. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot.
It's a journey
do
with the publisher. It's a journey
can't
with the
do
publisher.
this anymore.
Yeah,
Throw it
we
away.
got it there. We got it there.
Yeah,
It was very hard on you. It was very painful. You had to go through a lot of emotions to write that. I felt really guilty, but I thought that it was healing. The thing is, all her card sets are healing cards.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
All of her card sets
Yeah.
are healing cards. So the reality is her book, of course, is about healing, but healing for herself as well.
Yeah.
And that's why she came about to be a spiritual writer.
Nah.
Because you healed yourself and you heal other people. That's why you're empathetic to everybody else. You've been through it.
Yeah. And I guess, like, it's that stuff around, I didn't see it. Each time when I started writing this book, I didn't think it was going to be a big deal because I've done so much therapy. God damn, I've done a lot of therapy. So by the time I'm thinking, yeah, this is easy, Lisa, I can do this.
Yeah.
Lisa and Paul, I can do this. Not a
I
problem.
must have ring her and say, here you go.
And sometimes I wouldn't answer the phone in your house. So I we go dark. And Lisa would say, can you, like, just after I try to get hold of you for a month or so, could you just, like, text me back to say, I just can't answer your phone right now.
Very
Yeah, so
therapeutic.
now that leads into my next question. So what was the most difficult or cathartic to share? What was the hardest thing for you to share in all your sharing? Because there's lots of sharing.
I think the very early stuff, sharing my mum's and dad's really personal stories. Like, not everybody wants to hear a story about, the violence.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to my parents because they're both alive and they're both very separated.
But alive.
I'm not sure because of that. Maybe that's because they're pretty alive still. But they came together separately, but supported me 100% behind this. I'm telling the world our shame.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And even to the point where some funny stories about, there's a story in there about mum buying a gun to shoot us. And it's just like, Mum, tell us the rest of that story. And we were at that point, well, I couldn't ask her that. And she told me this funny story about, but going off to buy a gun to shoot kangaroos when she was really going to shoot my dad. And maybe us, wasn't sure at that time. And then the gun they brought out was huge, and she thought, no, I better tell them like it's small. So she got a smaller gun, and then she got it home, and she didn't know how to use it. So she gave it to the next door neighbour to find out if between them they could work out how to use the gun. I don't know if the next door neighbour knew what was to shoot my dad. But then the guy next door was having a tough time financially, and he burnt his house down with the gun in it. So then the gun's gone.
So that was fate. No one's getting shot by your mum.
Your mum and dad's story is pretty powerful. That's a very powerful part of the book. It's tragic, but it's tough, but it is what it is. I mean, you could understand why she was so distraught. She'd had a hard time.
She had, and and this is what, any woman that bought or that has had their kids removed, hell, we know who worked in it. Anyone, so she can get us removed, but we left her. And I can understand as a mum what that would be like. Because in my book, I also talk about when I left my first husband, he would not let me have my kids. No way he was letting me have them. But I refused to put them through what we went through. So what I actually did was I'm not fighting on this one. And in fact, hopefully he won't watch this. We played the long game and went, you know what? He'll just dig his own grave eventually, and the girls would just come back to me naturally. And within a year they were all back with me.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't have to put them through all that. They just
You let it be.
And it was hard. Although sometimes it wasn't so bad, like going home and just cooking for yourself. It wasn't so bad. Those bits.
So how do you hope Shades of Me will impact readers, especially those that might have had similar experiences to you? What is the impact? Has there been impact in all the talks that you've been doing and whatnot?
A number of people have said to me that they've read this and it's made a difference, and they've had those aha moments. Okay, radio. So I don't it's only been a couple of weeks, so I haven't heard too many stories yet. But what I would hope for is that, you know what, Ash, one day somebody is writing a book and they in their book they've gone, you know what, I read Shades of Me, or because I love him.
How did you come up with the name? I'll tell you my story. Sorry, I jumped to the titles. How did you come
At my publisher, so later.
Or we workshopped on it. That's the truth of what it is. It's many shades of their life.
Yeah. And it's got all these different meanings to it in the end once we pulled it all apart, the shades of me being the different colours, the shades of me growing up white and being Aboriginal, the shades of me, because there are so many different meanings.
Yeah.
There are so many different meanings. And I can be dark, don't get me wrong. I am not this angelic person who writes beautiful.
Love and light.
Yeah. I have a mean streak.
Try her oracles, they're not love and light.
No, I pulled the death card.
What's your chakra one? What's your
goddess chakra?
Oh, the goddess chakra one is so accurate.
I know.
So accurate.
And which is why I really like the shadow cards too, because they are. I got a little bit. All of my cards have always been. Everything's not wonderful and beautiful.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to kick up the backside to go move on, or you know what, you are the problem, and you need to make some changes. Because I hate it how we're always thinking that we don't have to take responsibility for ourselves.
That is exactly it. I come up with the name of my book. I was in court with the father of my kids, and the old judge pulled the glasses down his nose, and he looked at me and said, "Why are you with this man? Why are you with him? He's an awful, awful man." I stood up and he said, "Why are you with him?" I said, "Because I love him."
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, the border. That's so funny. But that was how I came up with it,
Yep.
And it wasn't me, it was Anita Hines, just another writer. I was telling her, she said, "You better name that book that, or I'm naming the book that."
Wow.
Yeah, so it's funny, yeah.
Yeah.
How we come up with things.
Yeah. And when Rockpool came back with the Shades of Me, I just went,
They loved it straight
it was
away.
right.
Yeah.
It was right. Yeah.
When it feels right, it feels right. Now.
Yeah, it is.
So, what was your writing process? Did you have one? Did you have chapters?
Well, I've already in the beginning of the 3-year process, Lisa just said, "Write. I don't care where you start writing, just put something to paper. Just start writing. Okay, we'll sort it all out later." And then I was really lucky to get a brilliant editor, Gab, who then, because I was so in my head, I thought I had to do it chronologically.
Yeah.
And it was messing with my head because there was some story there that fitted there, and I didn't know how to make that work. So a lot of time between Lisa and Gab coming back and forwards, and Gab going, what would you think about putting this here and that there and making chapters smaller and taking this stuff out and putting this stuff in and I think that was one of the interesting things is what I felt needed to be there in my story and what an editor felt should be there, because I'm a professional in child protection. Ask me and I'll tell you, right? But I'm not a professional editor.
Yeah.
And so what I found in the process of being really amazing was that Gab was able to say, it will look better this way, but you don't have to do it. And I'm just going, you're the expert here. So I actually would, I'm really happy to.
But where you didn't agree, you
kept what I
stuck to your gun.
Yeah. Didn't mean I just did everything.
no,
But
Did you get word as well?
no, in fact, there were times when, no, but there were times when Gab would say, I want more of that story. And it's just like,
What more? How much more?
I can't do any more. And I would write back in the, in the little editor's notes on the side, I can't do any more, Gab, I'm done with this. Like, there's no more.
But then there were other ones that you did.
There was a lot that I could add more, but there was some that I just said no.
It's a
no,
collaborative
we're done.
project.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you decide what to add, what to put in and what to leave out? Because that's a big thing in a memoir. Like, how much do people really need to know?
I thought they had to know everything.
Yeah.
And not everything's in there. That's probably half of what we originally.
But I could kind of sense that. I was thinking, oh, there's more there. There's more there. That's not the whole truth. I know there's deeper stuff.
There's a whole lot of stuff there, as we talked about before, about Jackie that didn't quite make it in as it was. And it's funny when you name somebody, a character, a different name, and people go, so do you get on well with Alan? Who's Alan?
How did you come up with your name?
Kick them out.
I did it from whoever I was talking about, who they reminded me of. So one of my aunties reminded me of Big Ange on the Mafia. So I named her Angela. One of my aunties named me, I remember Cynthia on Sex and the City, so I named her so that I could remember who was who. Because I come from a big family, remember? So
That's what I should have done. Of course I didn't. I'm just going, oh no, let's just pick a name, any name. Oh, I don't want to
pick a name.
Yeah.
So did you look for permission from anyone in the family, or did you? Because I got my kids' permission. I didn't make them. I said, you just need to read this. I want this to be. If this was anyone beside myself is going to get affected by this, it's going to be you two. So
yeah.
So they chose their names in the book and they read it and they said, yeah, well, that's it, Mum, that's it.
So my kids' names are their names in there, and they're really happy with that. And Mum and Dad were very happy with the book, and my sister. So it was Mum, Dad, my sister. They were the three because they were the ones who most of the story about. My husband still hasn't read it yet. He figures he was there, so he doesn't need to read it, like in the last part of it. And my kids, interestingly, one in particular, my youngest, Jenna, has just said, Mum, I don't know that I can read that stuff about you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I need to, no, I know it's happened, but I don't know that I can go through it with you.
Yeah. And how old are your children now?
27, 27, 30 and 33. So they're getting up there. They're hoping the book goes really well because they reckon that they've got their hand out for
or they think it's a money making machine. It's really not.
Yeah.
But anyway, we know
Yeah,
that.
they think it's without them, half the book wouldn't exist.
That's
so
right.
that they're entitled to something. It's like, yeah, I had to write about you. That's enough children.
So there's one. I'm going to get into the spiritual phase now because I googled. Where's my question for that? Threefold law. What is it? Because I googled and I was thinking, what is she talking about? What is it? And there's all these different definitions. And I think I'm asking her that question.
It's so simple. What goes out, comes back 3 times. So if you're, and I don't do it, I'm not nice because of this, but if you're a nice person, 3 times nice comes back. If you're a crappy person, life's going to be really ordinary for you. Yeah.
So that's it.
That's it. Don't get all complicated
No,
about
it's all getting complicated.
Yeah,
Google.
don't get all
I'm
complicated.
so confused.
Law of threefold. It's a pagan belief,
Yeah.
and it's around what goes out comes back.
So it's like that ball thing, when you click it and it
Yeah. Yeah.
What's it called?
Yeah, yeah, I know
You
which
know
one.
what I'm talking about? When
Yeah.
you get that and it goes tonk, tonk, and then tonk, tonk.
Yeah, like they have them on boss's desk.
Yes.
It's always in the community.
So
Yeah,
what you put out comes back.
it does, and it
Threefold.
comes back 3 times.
Maybe nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it's hard being nice all the time. I'm going to be nice all the time.
I know, and when I do my lateral violence training, I don't talk about threefold there because that might spin them out a little bit because I'm usually talking to, not people like us at that point in time. And when I talk about, I don't believe there's a reason for us to be mean to other people.
Yeah.
And I know that when I am mean, I have to look back at myself and go, why? This is about you. It's not about them. It's about you. What's wrong with you? Why do you feel the need to put someone else down or make someone else's day really crappy? Yeah. I did it tonight at the motel. Like, the heater's not working. I asked them 3 times, can you please fix it? And in the end, they said, we'll send the maintenance man back. And I said, he's useless. I don't want him back.
Yeah.
And I even felt
But that's
bad
not
about
mean, that's factual.
No, I could have just
It
said,
was factual.
instead of saying he was useless, I could have said, no, thank you, just give me the heater. But no, I wanted to do
Change
that
rooms.
next bit. I can't be bothered, I'm
No.
too goddamn lazy for that.
Pack all the stuff back out.
Yeah, I'm too lazy for it.
So let's walk down the spiritual path now as we wind up, because that's a big part of your book too. So did you always feel that way inclined, like even as a child, and what led you to do all that stuff that you do now? Because in my thing, I believe that I've got to balance, I've got to balance the boo-hoo with the woo-hoo.
Yeah.
Because I live in that space where there's lots of, emotional trauma. And so I need something to, get you out of it.
Absolutely.
But I don't think it was woo-hoo as you, but.
No,
Which isn't a bad thing, but.
and that's the thing. So I think I remember my first tarot read or palm read or something. I don't know. I can remember. I think I remember it. I was 17 years old, 18 years old. So I've always got that.
Yeah.
And it was probably when I really started, when I started learning it all, really not only learning about my Aboriginality, but embracing Aboriginality. There was this, and it's not in the book, I haven't told the story. This old fellow used to stand in my doorway, and he wasn't creepy, but he was like a full traditional man.
Yeah.
And it's just like, look up and go, and I'd look and he'd be gone again. And I kept thinking, this is a brand new house. And it's just like, but it's not brand new land.
Yeah.
It's not
Yes,
new land.
that's the thing, yeah.
He's just, and had doorbell used to ring at this new house all the time. It used to be, he's home. And I always, and then when I come across that Witches in the Boardroom book, Stacey, and that was a huge thing for me because it was that moment when, oh my God, this is a really big thing for me. And a lot of Aboriginal people get a little bit worried about the word witches and witchcraft and all that sort of stuff. But what I like to do is, I'm not watering it down, but call it what it is, which is it's just rituals, or it's just ways we do things. And we've always done this Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
Nature
Nature-driven.
Absolutely. And as Aboriginal people, we've done it always, and I think that it's progressed. And then I was doing my leadership. Did you do your Aboriginal leadership? You must be one of the few people. I did my Aboriginal, I don't mean that nastily, but it was a good thing.
Who was the facilitator? Oh, man.
No, it's it's now a certificate or a qualification.
No.
It was about 10, 12, 15 years ago when I first started out. And I did my Aboriginal leadership, and I was drawing. So I was at uni and I was just drawing because when I am really concentrating, I draw.
Right.
Like a lot of people do, draw, and I can hear better if I'm drawing. And this woman's walked up behind me and she just said, you know what that is? And I said, no, and she said, it's cards. She meant gift cards, but I knew the minute she said cards, this is my first deck of tarot cards I've started to do here. Not that one, but this is where she...
Right.
So that was my first deck, which is the Aboriginal Spirit Oracle, which is a really different deck to the rest of the decks because it's really quite different. But that is where it was at that point in time. And then from there on, you know, with the support of Rockpool, we've got a whole bunch more cards out. And then, of course, I did 3 years full-time as clairvoyant up in Ballina, Byron Bay. And that was, I couldn't balance. I was in that space of being somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard space to be in, to maintain some equilibrium that there wasn't. And so in the end, I just thought, you know what, even though I needed a break from child protection, I needed to go back to work as well.
Right.
Even though that was my work shop and it was my work, I needed to go back into community again. I felt a really strong call to go back into work.
And that's what you did.
I did.
So do you have any advice for aspiring writers? Because this is your first book, isn't it? But even though you've done the cards and the books that go with the decks of cards.
Yeah.
What's your advice to anyone?
Just start. And it doesn't have to be this, right? It doesn't have to be like you and I have created a cake. Can we just, this is my black hole stuff coming out, can we just write our stories down so that people like myself and my mum, when we're learning more about our Aboriginality, moving from that heritage to identity, that we've got something to go on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've got to stop the secrets. We've got to share. Families need to share their stories. Every family, not just Aboriginal families, but all families need to share their stories, because how will my great-grandkids are going to know my story, but how does the average great-grandchild get to know their stories from beforehand? And it doesn't have to be a book like this. It can just be start to write, get your story down, so that those who come after you
I've got something.
story.
Yeah.
And you can edit it, you might write it however you want.
So writing this book changed you in any way?
I think I'm more healed, I guess.
That's what I was going to say. Has
I
it
am
lightened the load?
healed, yeah. Because, but I would have lived the rest of my life thinking I've done all my healing. And I'd be stupid to say I have done all my healing, because I haven't.
No,
It's just it's a continual process. You just dig a bit deeper and you heal over and you think I'm done, and then you have to, something happens and it's back in there again and it heals over, and it's just the depths.
So what have you learned most about yourself in this whole process? 3 years.
That I
3 years.
could do it.
That you could do it.
There were times I didn't think I could.
And you're never too old.
No,
to do it.
hell no. No, that's right. Hell, closer to 60 than any other number. And yeah, it's done now. There is no more books. There is no more after this, I say. But then
You're going to be a one-hit wonder like me. I've got another book in my head. I've just got to get it out.
well, I say there's not another book in there.
You've got another card deck.
Yeah.
You don't need to talk about that yet, but you do.
Keep that one under wraps.
I'm not telling everybody because I'm so excited. I've already started, and it's a happening thing. No one should beat me to it. It's all right. Universe will be what universe is.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I always trust it. There's plenty of room for lots of us to be
There's
successful.
enough for everyone. Like that's, if people understood that better, there would be less fighting amongst people. If there's enough for everyone. You just, like in the child and worker space, in the DV space, there's more than enough for for everyone to help and do something. But
absolutely,
it's strange. So how do you feel about connecting with readers on such a personal level like that? Because this is your life of, the loves and, coming out, like openly saying that you didn't realise you were Aboriginal until old age, and then delving into it and leaving the DV, all the family stuff, getting into the spirituality, leaving a perfectly good husband. I'm telling everyone about the book. You should buy it and read it.
Oh, that's right.
There's a lot more to read in it. There's a lot more.
And the find the love of your life at the end of the tunnel, so there's a lot to connect with on all different levels. Have you found that yet? I know it's early in the book. What's it, launching game, is it?
Yeah, I don't know.
What is the publicity route.
It's July, July
Yeah.
1, it's been published.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, this is like, you know.
Oh, well, it'll keep, we want it to keep going, yeah.
Yeah, as often as.
And
we
her,
can.
her cards all sell overseas, so hopefully we'll get this overseas
Yeah.
and sell internationally.
Absolutely. And I guess, you know, I just said to you there wasn't another book in me. But
No, don't ever say
When
back
I
to
say-
before it arrived.
when I sat there with my family,
Don't forget to drive both ways.
when I sat there with my family the other day, the renter crowd,
Mm.
and my uncle said to me, he calls me Melly. No one calls me Melly. He gets away with it except for me. He goes, Melly. He said, what you need to know is that there is another book in you because there's so many good stories that you
Yeah, the nice.
that's
one.
in here, and that you could write
A
it in a way.
celebration, a celebration.
Yeah, and he said you could write it in a way that this is how I did it wrong, but this is how I righted it.
Yeah.
You could do a compilation of celebratory stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could do a
So,
celebration.
but we are not talking about that at this point in time.
No.
So on the final note, final question is what do you want people to know the most? What advice would, did I answer that question? What advice would, so I'm all confused now because I'm getting old and tired. I'm going to know what advice would you give anyone, any Aboriginal woman who wants to write a book? You said just do it. I did ask that.
Do it.
question. Just, you can edit this, can't you?
Yeah, they'll let it.
So at the end of the whole, when you first held it in your hands.
But regardless of whether you're writing it,
What did you feel? What was the feeling when you thought, oh my God, did you think, oh, I did it?
No, it was a relief. It was just like, right,
That's done. Yeah.
yeah. And
Did you
that's
cry?
No. And that's
Well
me.
done.
That's me because it's just like, right, that's done. I'm busting to get onto this other.
We're about the same age, so that's why I said that.
I did
We
cry.
could do that. And I just didn't have that emotional attachment to it. It's like the cards as well. It's just like spirit, God, ancestors, whatever you want to call whatever it is up here that you believe in.
They're managing.
That's done. I move on.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm very good at. It's like, right, done, what's next? Right, done, what's next? And it's a thing that a lot of people don't do, and I'm not good at it, is stopping to celebrate and look. And I don't do that. It's just like, right, I can't wait to do the next bit, which I've just started. And that's all my head is around. That's done. This next part that I want to do, that's where my head is now.
Well, I look forward to that next part.